All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we got more bad news coming out from Ubisoft. Ubisoft is a company that is struggling right now. There is no doubt about it. And ever since Star Wars Outlaws came out to not so great sales, even though they don't want to tell you what the sales are because obviously it's not good, Ubisoft is now struggling to keep their stock afloat. Their stock has dropped 7%. And while you're thinking to yourself, 7% doesn't sound like a lot, trust me, for a company like Ubisoft, it actually is.
Tonight at 11.
Doom! Once you get to the size of Ubisoft, 7% is a massive hit to take on your stock, and to take it so suddenly makes it even worse. But ultimately, this all comes down to them not wanting to be transparent with their investors. Ubisoft had an earnings call recently where one of their investors asked them the simple question, how are the pre-orders looking for Star Wars Outlaws and Assassin's Creed Shadows? And the CEO openly said, we don't discuss pre-order numbers. That is a big red flag for any investor investing in video game companies like this. So let's get into this article, guys, from That Park Place. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. It says Ubisoft stock price dropped 7% as the company faces pressure from investors to take company private, and Star Wars Outlaw sales are soft. Now, again, we knew this was coming, okay? I said before many times that I didn't think Star Wars Outlaws was going to be a failure necessarily, but I didn't think it was going to sell nowhere near as Jedi Fallen Order or any game like that. I just didn't think that was possible. Like, if you look at this game, it was very clear that it had the modern audience spin on it, and it's going to turn off a lot of people who might have potentially bought this game, and that's okay. As long as your budget is small enough to handle it, that's fine. You know what I mean? You can make whatever woke-ass video game you want. Just make sure your numbers are lined up. But unfortunately, what ends up happening is you have these people over at Ubisoft or people at companies like Ubisoft where they have people who are convincing others with the actual money that this is a great idea. It says Ubisoft, the company behind Star Wars Outlaws, X-Defiant, and Assassin's Creed, and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, saw its stock price drop 7% in a single day as it faces pressure from investors to take the company private, as well as reports of soft sales for Star Wars Outlaws. The stock price has fallen to a low of $13.67. Specifically, it fell over 7% in one singular day. That's what I want you guys to realize. One singular day, 7% is fucking massive. Now, when you look at it over a trajectory of time, it apparently has dropped 16% in 5 days and 41% in 3 months, 30% in 6 months. This is disgusting numbers, okay? I can't even imagine what it must be like to be an investor at Ubisoft, watching the stock drop 41% over 3 months. And when you ask the question, hey, how are pre-orders looking? Are we looking okay? The CEO says, well, we don't discuss that. What the fuck? Are you kidding me right now? I would pull out real quick. No wonder so many people are leaving. And they only have themselves to blame. In the last year, the company's stock price is down 50%. In the last 5 years, it has declined over 81%. Oh my God. Look at this fucking graph, bro. Look at this graph. How can you be happy with this graph? There is no way. And then you have the balls, right? You have the audacity to tell one of your investors that you don't discuss pre-order numbers. Oh, I would have sold my shares right then and then. Fuck that shit, man. Look at this. Look at this. As an investor, I would be worried too. Imagine if you were one of the people who invested at this point in time. You're losing crazy money at this point. It says the most recent stock drop comes in the wake of Star Wars Outlaws reportedly having soft sales, as well as the Slovakian investment firm AJ Investments urging the company to please go private. I mean, listen, at this point, They might as well. They're clearly not doing well on the stock exchange. Nobody is investing in them, and it's clear that the company is considered too risky. That's basically what it is. Ubisoft is too risky of a company. This is a prime example of what happens when not only when you get woke, go broke, but it's not just about wokeness, right? When you mismanage your funds, when you mismanage your projects, when you mismanage everything, this is what happens. You end up getting completely and utterly wrecked in the time of just a few years, and you go from making great money to making absolutely fucking nothing. And yet at some point in time, you're still deciding to double down on wokeness and saying that that's going to make you get into the, to the mass audience. That's what's going to make it happen. This is what you're deciding to do when you're barely at, when you're at your wit's end. You double down on the shit that's going to destroy you indefinitely. First, it was reported Star Wars Outlaws sales were performing much worse than Star Wars Jedi Survivor in the United Kingdom. Games industry head Christopher Dring detailed that Star Wars Outlaws launch sales are 55% lower than what Star Wars Jedi Survivor did. He added it was 15% bigger than Ubisoft's massive last game, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. Now, again, I would imagine Star Wars is a bigger IP than Avatar, especially when it comes to the games, right? Like, Avatar doesn't really have many games. That last one, it was one of its first big ones. But, yeah, Star Wars is definitely much more well-known on the video game side. This data was seemingly reflected in a report from True Trophies that detailed that the game only hit 25th place in its top 40 most popular PlayStation game chart the week that it debuted. The outlet's Kess Ayler Stevenson shared 25 is just below the middle of the chart, and it sits behind pretty much every major and middling live service game in terms of popularity right now. Normally, these are the early 20 spots where PlayStation Plus indie games debut, not new AAA open world games. That's because this game is trying to reach the audience that most indie games end up reaching, right? Which is a very small audience. Unfortunately for them, they decided to tell people who actually would have bought the game and had the money to buy the game that the game wasn't made for them. They said, if you don't like the direction, don't play it. Right? They clearly have an ideological standard that they're trying to uphold, and people are not. You don't have to go buy into that, right? It's not my job to pay for your ideology. That's never been the thing. If you want to push your ideology, that's fine. You have every right to do so, freedom of speech, all that stuff. But it doesn't mean that I then have to support you. It doesn't matter how many names you call me, racist, bigot, sexist, phobe, whatever. I don't have to give you my money just because you worked on a game. That's not the logic. And trust me, they try to make that the logic, but that'll never be the logic. It's never a thing. You don't ever have to do that. So ultimately, gamers are voting with their wallets, and it's good. It's good that we're finally seeing people stand up against this shit. People are realizing that they don't have to put their money to this stuff. You have a backlog, I guarantee you, of an insane amount of games that you can play that'll keep you busy for years. You don't have to give these AAA developers that don't respect you as a gamer, don't respect your time, don't respect your ideas, don't respect your money. You don't have to give them your money, okay? You can clearly go and play something else, and I guarantee you will be just as entertained, if not more. So ultimately, Ubisoft looks like it's going the way of the dodo bird, and I feel like it's only a matter of time before we hear about even more layoffs or just a company closure or absorption at this point. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it if you could like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.